Reed was an island boy, born and raised on Sullivan's Island. He presented himself that way to others, and he regarded himself as being that. It was, I think, in the mid-90s that he went to law school, so therefore he didn't start becoming a practicing attorney until the late 90s. And he practiced for several years and did various civil kinds of cases, but mostly he did criminal defense. Reed was extremely focused and determined. Some people said that perhaps he ought to smile a little more than he did, but he was a very loyal friend, and very loyal to the people he was close to or worked with. His clients realized that he was going to work hard for them, and if they knew more about his background in terms of having been in the workforce and kind of a technical way and going to school later in life, and that would have confirmed what they saw about him handling their cases. And he, great attention to detail, very outcome oriented like many lawyers are. Reed confirmed that if you have his kind of determination, his kind of focus, his kind of paying attention to the details all along the way, that win or lose, whatever the outcome, winning or losing, you knew that with the way he approached it, then the best the job could be done was done. What I'll remember about Reed is my general sense of him, his presence, but I'll remember his wife, Lynn Clark, and her two wonderful children that were Reed's stepchildren. I get to remember him very well because I see Lynn and Emily and Kyle. So Reed lives on through them.
Joe was a soft-spoken guy. He's very, very intelligent. A lot of people think that the best lawyers are the ones at parties who have lampshades on their head. They're loud and obnoxious and all that stuff. Well, Joe was the antithesis of that. He was always a gentleman. He never raised his voice in depositions or trials. Most of all, he was so knowledgeable about the law. He knew so many things that he was like having a legal encyclopedia in the office. In the mornings, you would see a line of associates outside his office to ask him questions, mostly that began with, "Joe, can I get this in?" or "Joe, are they going to be able to get this into evidence?" He was a trial lawyer's trial lawyer, and we all went to him to learn how to try cases. He took an early stance in favor of civil rights and civil rights litigation back in the 40s when he was just a young lawyer back from the war. He spoke out. These are during the times that Judge Wadey's Waring was speaking out against discrimination and in favor of desegregation. It was just a very tough time, and for Joe to speak out at a time like that as a young lawyer, it was pretty significant stuff. He was elected president of the Charleston Bar and was involved in various other activities. I mean, from the start until the very end, he was always very involved. The two things that endear me most to him probably are the way that he took me under his wing, and the other thing was to become involved in the community. What would I like to add about Joe? I loved him and I miss him.
Mike and I met the first week of our freshman year at Clemson University in 1971. We formed an instant friendship that lasted a lifetime. Mike was a trial lawyer his entire career, 38 plus years, and a trial lawyer in the truest sense of the word, and we wouldn't dare give him a real estate closing to do, but he could take any file to court and do quite well. Mike, you'd have to know Mike to truly understand, but he never met a stranger, and I don't think he had any enemies, and he just had the gift of gab and was a tremendous storyteller, and everybody loved Mike. Well, Mike stayed amazingly calm dealing with some of the characters that he had to deal with, his clients in litigation, which, as you know, can be quite stressful. Well, he was a very hard worker, and he liked to joke around. He liked to have a good time, but he didn't mind putting in the hours for work. One of the things I'll remember about him is in law school, he was a year ahead of me, and he kind of was my mentor in law school, guided me through, and he taught me not to worry too much about the grades and to have some fun as you go through the process, smell the roses going forward. When I got out of law school in 1980, I hung my shingle out because I wanted to come back home to Charleston, and I could not have done it without Mike and his father's assistance as far as teaching me the ropes and practicing law. You know, law school teaches you a lot about law, but practicing law, you just have to get out there and do it. And I could not have survived without their expertise in guiding me. And to this day, well, I will always be grateful for the help they gave me. As far as memories I will have of Mike is that he practiced law for almost 40 years with high ethical standards and due regard for everyone he came in contact with. He may have had adversaries, but he did not have any enemies. He truly loved the law and loved being a lawyer. It was his life.
I met John when he joined the public defender's office. I was a young assistant solicitor at the time. He came in full of energy and excitement about defending the downtrodden. We were then both members of the Young Lawyers Division, and he came to me and said he wanted to put together golf tournaments to raise money for charities. You know, here's a guy who's an adopted son of the South, and he's already fully involved in the community. He wants to raise money for these charities, and because he's such an avid and almost professional golfer, I mean, it was a perfect venue for us, perfect avenue. John was the kind of lawyer that he could get results by any means necessary. In his DUI work specifically, if John needed to try a case to get the results that he and his client wanted, he had no problem trying the case. He could get the results he wanted just by talking sense to the prosecutor or to the police officer that's handling the case and saying, really guys, isn't this really what justice demands for my client? And 9 times out of 10 or almost 10 times out of 10, he would get the results he was wanting that way. The times that I saw him interacting with his clients when I was a prosecutor and he was a young public defender, it was like they were family. Yeah, he just took everyone under his wing and treated them like one of their own. I mean, like one of his own family members. And by doing so, you could tell that he was passionate about the work and passionate about getting the results for the people. I will not be able to do it justice, but he had the most spontaneous laugh. He would crack himself up. And if it wasn't something you said, it'd be something he had said, and he would just spontaneous cackle, involuntarily. It had to be involuntarily. That just infectious laugh. So, but I mean, whenever I think about John, that's what I think of.
In college, I think his senior year, he decided to apply to law school. And I think he was so glad that he did. He was a brilliant lawyer, and he loved the law. So once he got involved in the law, he realized what it could do when you're put in that position for your clients and how you could help people. He was part of the Air Force, so he signed up with the Air Force. So after graduating, he became part of the JAG Corps, and he was a litigator. And I think he had some really interesting cases. He had to defend some Air Force men. To spend time with Dad, I had to spend time doing what Dad enjoyed. And as a daughter, and the oldest daughter, I have a younger brother, we would both spend a lot of time with Dad, but that meant hunting, fishing, offshore fishing, inshore fishing, learning to fly fish, tie my own flies. Even though I have the love of the law like Dad, my treasured memories are his love of the outdoors and the skills he taught me when spending time outside in the woods. And if I had to describe Dad as an attorney, I would say Bill Fuller was a zealous advocate. His clients loved him because they knew they could put their trust, their faith in him, and that he would do his best to work hard for them. Even though he ultimately ended up having to retire on disability at around the age of 57, 58, 20 years later, when he died at 78, I received some of the most beautiful notes from former clients about what it meant to have Dad as their attorney, as someone they could trust to fight for them. And what he taught me and instilled in me was a sense of honor and integrity and honesty. And he truly believed that the reason we're held to a higher standard is because we have such an impact upon our clients and the public in general. And that we need to respect that, and well, first understand it, and then to respect it and to uphold it.
I'm a tenured professor here at the Charleston School of Law, and I first met Rutledge here. He was a student. He was in at least 2 of my classes, I think evidence and criminal procedure. So I got to know him on that basis. And once he got out and started practicing law, I got to know him through a program we were doing here. It's a clinics program where students can actually participate in live and ongoing cases. I would describe him as a lawyer by saying he was very enthusiastic, very much a go-getter, somebody who was excited about what he was doing and really interested in it. After Rutledge left, we kind of had a break. I didn't see him again for a while. And he was at the State Attorney General's office in Columbia. And when Ed Bell became president of the school, Ed wanted to start a clinics program, a program by which students could participate in real trials, depositions, real hearings in court, and do the real thing. And that's possible, of course, in law schools. And one of the things we did the very first time we had the clinics program, Rutledge was an assistant state attorney general. Rutledge came down and the students all got to participate in doing post-conviction relief hearings, which was great. Rutledge became an adjunct professor. And Rutledge was very eager about it. I mean, he worked with the students, he taught them the post-conviction relief material. Rutledge was very enthusiastic. He shepherded the students, he worked with them one-on-one. He was, as a person, he was kind, he worked with people, he was honest. He wanted to help the students. He wanted to do a good job. He wanted to assist me. I could always count on him. And he was always here, unless he was at work. He was always dependable. He would be here. So I got along with him very well. I think he was a very good person. I think what I will remember most about my time and experience with him is just his dedication and his willingness to do this, and his willingness to be a real part and team player in whatever he was doing.
She was the type of attorney who would, she really would go out for the underdog, always has, but yet at the same time she was a defense attorney with me. So it's a little abnormal in that, you know, she would work tirelessly for people who, you know, who didn't even have any money. And yet then, of course, she also would do her courtroom work for the insurance carriers. As far as her clients go, I can't tell you how many of them I saw in the audience at her funeral. So, you know, a lot of times practicing law, you've upset one side or the other, you can make enemies, but she was the kind of person that even for people working against her, she would make them laugh. And so she was also the type of person that whether you were a plaintiff's lawyer or defense lawyer, you would respect her and respect her decision. Terry was going to be my first appointment as magistrate, and in fact she was appointed as magistrate. But unfortunately, right before she was going to get sworn in, she told me that she was sick again. She ended up opting herself not to be sworn in, but you know, I was so proud to have her as my first appointment, and she would have made such an excellent judge. It was really, you know, it was the three amigos really. It was Sin McDonald and Lineback. So that was when Stephanie McDonald was also one of our law partners. She's now on the appellate bench. And we used to call ourselves the Coven. And the reason we did so is we all had young girls, kids, and we basically had to act as a village to raise the children, because when one of us was in trial, the other had to basically help pick up from school or whatnot. And so our kids became fast friends as well. And we often joke that they basically, instead of playing house like most kids would, they would come in here and play office. And she's kind to the core, very religious, very family oriented, and worshiped her Lord, but certainly her little girl, Mackenzie.
I met Ben a long time ago, and we sailed race sailboats against each other. I was a teenager. Ben was a bit older, a good 10 years older than I was, and we raced a sailboat called Y Flyers. Ben was a real estate and estate lawyer. Ben read law in his father's law office. The state of South Carolina would allow you to do that, study law as an apprentice, and to take the bar exam. And Ben was one of the last lawyers that I know about on Broad Street who read law. And he learned, he was a very good lawyer, and it was a very effective way to learn the law. When I think of Ben McMillan now, the first thing that pops into my head is that he was a really good person. He was a gentleman, he was friendly, he was happy, he was a nice individual. Ben was an extraordinary person. He was born with a disability, a speech impediment. And so he didn't go to court, but he communicated better than most lawyers can communicate, and under a disability, he was an exceptional person. He overcame adversity. He just, we all need to be like him. I wish we all could be like him.
Met George Morris when I got out of the Marine Corps in 1969. He was dating a friend of my wife's, and we went out together on a double date and became lifelong friends and best friends from that point on. George was a wonderful person. He was a good friend, a good lawyer, was always out to help anybody he could help anybody, and any lawyer that needed help as far as any information on cases or etc. That he was always helpful. George was a bulldog. When George got a case, he was on for life. It didn't matter if he made any money out of it or not. He was an advocate through and through. He loved practicing law. He probably loved practicing and being a lawyer more than anybody I ever met in my life. But no matter how much money he made out of the case, he followed through with it and tried to get a good result for the client. I always used to laugh at George. I said that George would probably be one of the few people I know that would, when he was dying, would say he wants to spend more time at the office. That's the old adage about lawyers. But George was bedridden for about a month before he died, and about 3 days before he died, he was laying up in bed talking on the phone, trying to resolve a domestic case. So that's the kind of lawyer he was. He just was going to finish it no matter what, although he knew he was dying. What I learned from George was my inspiration to go to law school. I was working at a bank when I met George and had just gotten out of service and was trying to decide what I wanted to do in life. I wasn't very happy with my job. And he was so enthusiastic and liked being a lawyer so much that he inspired me to go to law school. And I think that's what I take back from George, is that he thoroughly enjoyed the practice of the law, and he assumed that to everybody else.
Bernard was admitted to the South Carolina bar in 1950, and he began a real estate practice. So by the time I joined with his firm, he was the go-to person for real estate in Charleston, in the city of Charleston and the county of Charleston and surrounding areas. Bernard was what you would call a typical Charleston lawyer. His office was always on Broad Street until we moved west of the Ashley in 1995. But until that time, he was a Broad Street lawyer. Bernard handled many real estate closings for people from Charleston and the people moving to Charleston. Lawyers nowadays, when they handle real estate closings, handle maybe 15 or 20 closings a day, maybe more. Bernard could do maybe 2, sometimes 3 on a really long day of closings, because his real estate closings were not designed to just get in, do your business, and get out. By the time Bernard's real estate closings were over, the clients and the other side had a new best friend, a new lawyer, and a new law firm to back them up. By the time the closing was over, he knew everything about them. He taught me how to be a professional at the practice of law, how to respect clients, how to obtain clients, how to deal with other lawyers. All of those things that go into practicing law, I learned mainly from Bernard Solomon.
Hugo Spitz was raised in Florida, and during World War II he voluntarily enlisted in the Navy, albeit he was exempt because his brother was killed during the war. After graduating from law school and while in Miami, he dated and later married a beautiful Miami student. She was Barbara Steinberg from the sleepy town of Charleston. He later moved to Charleston and became a partner in the firm of Steinberg and Lefkoff. Hugo was an outstanding workers' compensation lawyer for over 55 years and was highly and widely respected by both clients and adversaries. Hugo was involved in the Jewish community. He was a past president of his synagogue and president of the Hebrew Orphan Society, which limits its membership to only 36. He later received the Order of the Palmetto from Governor Jim Hodges. Hugo was selected as Mayor Palmer Gilliard's campaign manager in a hotly contested race. Palmer won. Hugo was named municipal judge and acquired fame, but not fortune, in the horse diaper case. In that case, a group of Charlestonians asked Judge Spitz to rule that carriage horses should be required to wear diapers for obvious and smelly reasons. Hugo ruled that God did not intend for horses to wear diapers, that he would not require them to do so. The case made the New York Times. After Steinberg died and Lefkoff retired, Hugo became senior partner in Steinberg, Lefkoff, Spitz, and Goldberg. May his memory be a blessing.